first service provider keynote is by Neville Ray, President of Technology at T-Mobile, and he will be talking about, or the name of his presentation is Powering the North American 5G Revolution.
We change the rules in customers' favor. We put them first. That's what makes us the UnCarrier.
We've created this powerhouse company. We built the country's biggest and fastest 5G network.
We're taking our 5G network to a level that others simply can't follow.
We're unleashing innovators to build the 5G future on our network. Well, good morning. How are we all doing? Oh, still too early? You get your coffee in this morning? Well, look, welcome. Welcome to the big 5G event. What could be more fun than being in Austin, Texas in this beautiful weather and talking about 5G for 3 days? I promise you don't have to listen to me for 3 days. Just about 15 minutes. Well, a bit less, actually. Maybe a bit more. We'll see how we go. So it's been a while for me since I've been in front of a live audience outside of work environment at T-Mobile in Seattle. So it's great to see a full room. Already seen a few familiar faces as I came in today and milled around before the keynote session started. And it's great to be back. I mean, I can't say we're out of this pandemic, but it's been a long 2 years battling through, and we seem to be on our way through this thing now. But this industry has not stood still for the last 2 years. And as Phil and Chris just outlined, in their speeches, their talk, this industry is moving at an incredible pace in terms of 5G. And I think sometimes, listening to Chris's last comments about sometimes the industry is not getting the recognition for the changes and the movement and the things that have been happening. So here at T-Mobile, let me talk a little bit about our journey and what that means for 5G overall as we look at the industry and we look at this 5G opportunity and capability here in the US. So 2 years is kind of a big milestone for T-Mobile and Sprint. It's just 2 years ago that we came together and combined the T-Mobile and Sprint businesses, April 1, 2020. And over that 2 years, there's a lot has happened with our business, and a lot has happened with 5G. And that's what I'll spend a bunch of time talking about, give you some updates, some details on where that all is. But the great news is that the companies have been coming together at a phenomenal pace. And I know there's a lot of you track, the wireless operators here in the US pretty closely. We're fairly fresh from our Q1 earnings update. And in there, we provided a lot of information about the scale and growth and capability of this new T-Mobile and how T-Mobile and Sprint coming together has transformed our balance sheet and our business. And there's a lot of things happening as we bring the two companies together. If we look at the journey, we have been on a mission to create a 5G leadership position in the US. And I'll show you data. I don't think there are many that would battle with me or fight with me in terms of the T-Mobile position today. And that's come about from a massive amount of pre-planning prior to the deal closing, and then a furious amount of work over the last 2 years. And the team has been aggressively doing multiple things, not just 5G. We've been rolling out 5G. We've been combining two networks together. We're now in the phase in 2022 where we're starting to remove redundant facilities and equipment from the new network. And that's driving massive cost transformation for our business in terms of synergies. And all of that happening at the same time while we're moving customers onto this new network and new set of experiences. So it's been a busy time, but we're super excited about the position that we're in. And we believe we've driven a new level of competition here in the US, much as we said we would when we were advocating with the regulatory authorities to close this deal. We said AT&T and Verizon would have to respond to what T-Mobile could do with Sprint. And they have, and they are, and they're starting all around mid-band spectrum. If you look at the auctions over the last 12 months, there's over $100 billion has been spent here in the US on mid-band spectrum. I think the number, I think Mike or Phil or somebody reported it fairly recently, $117 billion. Most of that from our competition, because T-Mobile secured such great assets as it moved through the combination with Sprint. So let's give you some updates on where we are from a coverage perspective. And T-Mobile started out with a low-band set of frequencies on 5G, 600 megahertz in fact, and dedicated 600 megahertz spectrum. That's a little different than our competition. They've been sharing spectrum between LTE and 5G. I love to talk about when we rolled out 5G in the low band, we added lanes to the freeway. We didn't just put 5G cars on the same freeway with LTE. Today, that network covers 315 million people. That's 5G footprint, 315 million people. And if you look at what does that mean in terms of the impact here in the US, 95% of all Americans are now covered with 5G, 95%. So we've come a long, long way. And people say the 5G is not out there in the US. Well, look at these stats. What does that 95% equate to in terms of geography? 1.8, almost 2 million square miles of 5G coverage. And you know I love maps, and we love advertising about our 5G footprint. But super proud of the work the team has done to make sure we're bringing 5G not just into urban hotspots, not just into metro America, but bringing 5G across the country. And of course, we're not done with our low band, our extended range 5G rollout. So let's move to the next piece. You know me and my layer cake, right? So low band on the bottom, then the mid band, and then millimeter wave high band spectrum on top. We've been talking about that cake for probably 4 years. And now we're realizing it, now we're delivering it. And this is where all the excitement is coming in 5G. This is where the true differentiated experiences come. Hopefully you guys are speed testing, regardless of which provider you have here in this convention center. If you want to experience some real ultra capacity 5G on a great mid-band layer, speed test T-Mobile. You're going to pull down somewhere between, my speed test this morning, between 500 and 700 megabits per second. Now, we're getting very blasé about that. I've been doing this a long time, guys, this job, one way or another. I remember GPRS when we were super proud, when we could do 128 kilobits per second. We're now enabling customers to have a true mobile broadband connection. 400 megabits per second in a wireless device that you can move around, travel on a freeway at 70 miles an hour, go into your home, come into a convention center. That's progress, guys, and that's what 5G is bringing to the US. And T-Mobile is way out in front. Our competition has finally got their hands on some mid-band spectrum. One of them in Verizon has started their rollout, AT&T pretty slow, waiting for radio product to come together for them so they can deploy, in one move later this year and start their progress. But here we are, 225 million people covered. So the other thing I love to use my hands talking about is on these 5G networks, it's not just talking about breadth of coverage, it's the depth of spectrum and coverage that you can provide. And so here's a new data point for media if they want to use it today. But as of now, our average mid-band holdings across this layer, 100 megahertz from T-Mobile. 100 megahertz of dedicated band 41 5G spectrum. That's why we can generate the speeds and capabilities that I'll show you in a second that we're very proud about. Now, to put that into perspective, the C-band assets that Verizon and AT&T secured in the C-band auction through 2023, that's 100 megahertz combined. Of course, AT&T hasn't really deployed very much to date. But Verizon's 60 megahertz out there. We're on a much bigger footprint and a much deeper set of spectrum assets. And that's why we can be in this position to talk about 5G leadership. Now, we're not done. And this is the piece that, you know us at T-Mobile, we won't stop. And so we've said this year our target is 260 million people covered. So to give you a sense, that doesn't sound like a big pops difference, right? 225, 260. Well, to generate that covered population number, we have to triple the geographic footprint of our midband network. That's how it works in the US. You guys, most of you, I think, live here. You know how it works. Deep urban metro populations, and it thins very quickly. So this year, we will triple the geographic footprint of our midband network. And I'll talk in a little while about what does that mean. And then for the end of next year, 300 million people covered. On midband, 300 million people covered in the US. We have to double our footprint again next year. And so our whole strategy and what we committed to do with the regulators across the country, as well as in federal offices in DC, is to bring a transformative 5G experience to the US and force our competition to invest and respond so that 5G went from being a smaller event in the US, if you went back 2 to 3 years ago, to being in a leadership position that we can be very proud of here in the US on a global scale. So 300 million people with midband 5G by the end of next year. And our competition doesn't have plans to even get past the 260 that I said we would close on this year. So game on. I love a bit of competition. And we want to see our competition invest and try and catch us as we push forward here. And it's kind of fun for T-Mobile to be up here talking about a leadership position in this industry. And that's what can happen with transformation and smart regulatory moves here in the US. Okay, so if we think about performance, and I'll do this very quickly, I think you guys see all the benchmarking, doesn't matter where you look. You can go OpenSignal, you can go Ookla, you can do Umlaut, who are doing great work. I've never said this from a stage before, guys, you can even look at Root. And Root Metrics now is very open and clear about who has established 5G leadership here in the US. And speeds are tremendous. I mean, these are median speeds from Ookla. If we look at speeds across all of the benchmarking entities that are out there, clearly we're leading. And that's a product of that spectrum depth that I talked about earlier on. So super proud of the progress here. And no surprise, we lead on availability. I think these stats somewhat understate our availability position. And one more news item, it's not broken yet, but I'll break it. You will see from us very shortly, not just the fastest and largest 5G network, fastest, largest, but most reliable will be back in our messaging, as it should be. And we will demonstrate with third-party benchmarking, which has been updated to show the strength and reliability and performance of our 5G network. So that's all great, right? What does that mean for customers? Let me accelerate a little bit. Before I jump to all of the customer stats, I do want to tell you that we are continuing to drive this 5G ecosystem so that we can really delight our customer base and advance the capabilities and services that we have today. We're the only carrier with a standalone 5G network. Great to have radio, nice to have a 5G core, and then you can realize all the 5G opportunities that we've been talking about for so long. Kind of tiring to have a 5G radio and an old LTE core that's been around for years. So we're modernizing. We want to get standalone across our network. What does that mean? That means getting voice services, every service, onto the 5G layer. So you're not going back down to that LTE layer. VoNR, Voice over NR, Voice over 5G, whatever you want to term it, coming from T-Mobile, you will see markets light up with VoNR capability, and we are really at the tip of the spear. This is going to be very high-quality voice service coming from T-Mobile. And last but not least, carrier aggregation, super important. Two things, two dimensions. One, we want to be able to light up all of the spectrum that we have through that layer cake, combining low and mid and high band, but also combining all of these various sources of mid-band spectrum that we have. We've started with 2.5. We have great AWS and we have great PCS assets. Our mission and plan is to have all of those committed towards 5G as we move through the coming years. So carrier aggregation, super important, working really hard with our vendor partners, our equipment vendors, our OEM partners, our chipset partners like Qualcomm, pushing the industry to make sure we can maximize the benefit and capability that we have coming with carrier aggregation and this rich spectrum set of assets. See what we're doing with 100 megahertz. What can we do with 300? Just think about the capabilities that can come with 5G. So, what's happening with customers? If you look at adoption and consumption of services on smartphones today, super exciting. 45% of our customer base now with a 5G smartphone. 45%. 5G is real, guys. I mean, that's massive, fast-paced adoption on new technology. And the great story is, if you look at the 5G traffic that's generated off those devices, it is more than half of all of the traffic on the T-Mobile network. So in a short period of a couple of years again, we've seen the dominant traffic on the T-Mobile network become 5G. So we're making tremendous progress. And if you look at what customers are doing, they are really engaging and enjoying their devices. Gaming, streaming, social media, big uptake. Folks even talk more on their 5G smartphones. So folks are really starting to consume. We've said, first major use case in 5G, smartphone. And it's happening. And the ecosystem that's out there, same as it did with LTE, as it realizes the capabilities and what these networks can deliver with multi-hundred megabit per second capability and low latencies, that innovation is coming at speed. Okay, I really do have to speed up, I realize. So everybody says, what's another great 5G use case? Give me some. Home internet. Hopefully you've been tracking what's been going on in this home internet space. T-Mobile is rocking in this home internet space. 40 million households that we can support this service on today because of the size and scale of this massive 5G network that we have. Could never do this on LTE. This is 5G, transforming competition in the home broadband space. It's happening quickly. You can see a third of the customers that we're going to go after, or we can go after, are in rural, where there's often no competition and very poor quality service. So that's super exciting. If we click on, we just celebrated 1 million customers. That's real business, folks, 1 million customers. And you can see that number going to 7 to 8 million as we move through into 2025. The fastest growing home internet provider in the United States today is not Comcast or Charter or Cox, it's T-Mobile. We're the fastest growing home internet provider on 5G. Now, Verizon obviously in this space, AT&T not in this space, and you can question why. Well, you need a network to support it, guys, right? And we have that mid-band network with all that spectrum, that capacity, that capability. So, and we've just launched, hopefully you saw, we're back in UnCarrier mode, crushing, killing pain points in this industry. We're going to come in and give you guaranteed pricing. We're going to make it easy to switch. We're going to give you great customer service. We're going to take the set of moves, we're taking the set of moves that we put in place for our wireless business, which has helped transform the industry here in the US. We're now applying that in the home internet business. Internet freedom is what we call our whole program now on really revolutionizing and bringing 5G home internet to many, many customers and people that really, really need this service. Okay, another growth vector for us, smaller markets, rural areas. We are bringing all of that 5G goodness, that 300 million people covered with 5G, that is coming to a small town near you. Great growth vector for this company. Business and enterprise, massive growth opportunity for T-Mobile. Historically, we under-indexed in this space because we didn't have the national network. Now we do. Businesses want to future-proof their buying decisions. They want to ensure they bring the best service and capability to their teams, their employees, their businesses, and they are coming to T-Mobile time and time again. Government, enterprise, great airline industry, companies like Alaska, vehicle brands like BMW are now coming to T-Mobile, and why? Because they realize we have a 5G advantage. But the great news is they're super excited about what 5G can do. And we could talk, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion here at the conference around what's happening with private networks, with MEC. There's so much that can happen in this 5G space, and we are just getting started. Okay, if we look at what T-Mobile is trying to do in this space, we are trying to fuel innovation. Hopefully you saw our 5G forward messaging. And we are now working with large numbers of developers. We are pushing really hard to try and drive innovation and investment in this 5G cycle and in this 5G space. We're opening up new facilities. We are bringing developers into those facilities. We're providing them developer kits, easy access to our network, trying to ensure that we can provide the place for folks to come and really test their ideas and their services against a 5G network. And companies are coming to us, asking us to explore the future. Disney Studios, Red Bull, companies like that are now coming to T-Mobile saying, how can I innovate in my business using your network and using the T-Mobile partnership? So that's super exciting, but we're just getting started. So everybody wants to talk about, the use cases. I'm going to hit one, and I think I talked to Phil about this a year ago. I was remote, he was here, but the wearable space. Today we made an announcement. We're a key partner with Qualcomm and their Snapdragon spaces. This is about AR primarily, and some XR. But I foundationally believe that 5G is going to transform the way we communicate in the consumer space. It's going to transform how businesses do business. And a big pathway in here is going to be the AR and the wearable space. I saw a stat the other day. They said by the end of the decade, the AR volume of business globally could be as high as $150 billion. And many of you are probably aware there's massive investment ongoing in and around this space to really bring a great wearables experience to life. How you communicate, what you do in your daily life. We've got trained to stare. I got my patting my thigh here because I got my iPhone 13 in there. That's what we do. We stare at that piece of glass. Well, that's going to change. And wearables are going to bring a lot of great content and information to you, be you a consumer, be that mobile workforce, be that healthcare. Just in this wearable segment alone, the opportunities to transform business and everyday life are almost endless. And we are eating our own dog food here. We have technicians out in the field who are using these technologies, and they can be trained on new equipment, new capabilities, and troubleshoot problems incredibly quickly. And think about that across all the mobile workforce environments. There's just one swim lane on what can happen here in this 5G space. So, I'm out of time. I ran over. I did way more than my, 15 minutes. But I want to leave you with this message. There were three kind of legs to the stool I just talked about. The first one is that we are building here in the US powerhouse 5G networks. And T-Mobile is out in front, driving a breadth and depth of 5G performance and coverage and capability that is unlike anything we have seen in our wireless lives. It's transformative. The second piece is customers are already really starting to enjoy 5G services on their smartphones with services like home internet. 5G is already creating great revenue sources in the wireless space. It's here, it's real. And then the third leg of the stool was a quick glimpse, I did it very quickly because I ran out of time, on into the future and what is coming. And you can only imagine what can happen on a mobile network that can support milliseconds, single-digit millisecond latencies, and speeds in the hundreds of megabits per second wherever you go. This 5G journey is just beginning. I hope you guys have a ton of time talking about that opportunity as we go through the next 3 days, and have a tremendous conference. And thank you for your time and attention today. Appreciate it.